Welcome all of you in SCA Academy. Today we discuss about the science lectures here for 7th standard and are conducted with the CBSE board. And in previous lectures, we already covered the 3 lectures on the chapter that name is the heat. When we discuss about the heat and the terms are related with the heat. In previous lecture or the first lecture, we discussed about the heat and the difference between the temperature. So heat is the form of energy. We already discussed. Temperature is the hue or it's a degree of the hotness and the coldness of the object. टेम्परेचर हमें क्या बताता है कि कौन सा ऑब्जेक्ट कितना हॉट है, कितना कोल्ड है, उसकी इंटेंसिटी कितनी है, ये अगर फाइंड आउट करना है वी हैव टू एनालाइज बाय यूजिंग द टेम्परेचर. So the temperature, what is the definition for the temperature? We already discussed in previous lecture. Temperature is nothing but it give the idea or it give the degree or the level of that hot object or the cold object. कितना hot है कितना cold ये हमें temperature बताता है. After that we discuss about the sequence of the temperature or the heat. अगर मैं किसी ऑब्जेक्ट को अगर छूता हूं बाय आवर स्किन, मैं अगर स्किन से टच करता हूं, छूता हूं किसी ऑब्जेक्ट, तो मुझे एनालाइज होता है कि वो ऑब्जेक्ट हॉट है या कोल्ड है. But this sense is not reliable. In a previous lecture, this sense is not reliable because only by touching the object we cannot definitely idea or cannot give the beneficial idea from that the object is how much hot or how much it's cold. कितना hot है और कितना cold हमें बताता नहीं है. By using only the sense, touch से हमें नहीं बता पाएंगे. So for that we get an accurate measurement of that hot object or of that cold object. We use the word that name is the temperature for that, and temperature gives the idea hotness and coldness. How we measure the temperature? What are the instruments are to be used to measure the temperature? For that we use different types of instrument. According to our textbook, the 3 instruments are to be mentioned. That the first instrument is called as the clinical thermometer. First instrument is called as the clinical thermometer. So the thermometer is the instrument or is the device. From that device we can measure the temperature of an object. किसी ऑब्जेक्ट का टेम्परेचर हमें मेजर करना है, किसी ऑब्जेक्ट कितना हॉट है कितना कोल्ड है ये अगर हमें पता करना है तो हम डिवाइस यूज करते हैं, एंड दैट डिवाइस इज कॉल्ड एज द क्लिनिकल थर्मामीटर. अनदर डिवाइस हैव टू बी यूज्ड, दैट नेम इज कॉल्ड एज द मैक्सिमम एंड मिनिमम थर्मामीटर, एंड थर्ड डिवाइस इज कॉल्ड एज द लैबोरेटरी थर्मामीटर. दीज आर द 3 devices. From that devices we can measure the temperature. So what is the temperature? Temperature is nothing but is the degree or is the level of hotness and coldness. Hotness and coldness का level कितना है ये हमें कौन बताता है? टेम्परेचर बताता है. By sequence wise, when some questions are in some students' minds, how we analyze by only the touching? No, because touching method is not reliable. It's not reliable. While using the touch to the object, it's not reliable. Why it's not reliable? Because while touching the object, we get only idea. We get only idea object is hot or object is cold. But only touch not give the intensity of that hot object and cold object. वो कितना ठंडा है कितना गर्म देगा क्या आइडिया नहीं. It cannot give the correct measurement. For correct measurement of hotness and coldness of the object, we use the temperature, and that temperature should be measured by the instrument, and that instruments are different types according to the hot objects and cold objects. कोई ऑब्जेक्ट कितना हॉट है कोल्ड है ये डिफरेंट टाइप्स के ऑब्जेक्ट होंगे ना, सेम टाइप के ऑब्जेक्ट होंगे क्या? मान लेते हैं कि हमारे सराउंडिंग में आवर डे टू डे लाइफ देयर आर सो मेनी ऑब्जेक्ट्स, सम आर हॉट सम आर कोल्ड, देयर टेम्परेचर आर डिफरेंट. For that we use a different instrument to measure the temperature. अलग अलग टाइप्स के हम क्या यूज करते हैं? इंस्ट्रूमेंट यूज करते हैं फॉर बेटर मेजरमेंट ऑफ द टेम्परेचर. आइडिया आनी चाहिए, करेक्ट मेजरमेंट आना चाहिए, तब जाके एनालाइज होगा ना. ऐसे हम नहीं कह सकते कि वो इतना हॉट है इतना कोल्ड है, कितना कितनी इंटेंसिटी है, इससे पता चलेगा ना वो ऑब्जेक्ट को छूना है या नहीं छूना है. टच करना किसी ऑब्जेक्ट को, ये हमें आइडिया होनी चाहिए कि वो ऑब्जेक्ट कितना हॉट है. अगर वो बहुत ज्यादा हॉट है, इट कैन हार्म्स योर हैंड्स आल्सो, यू कैन हार्म, इट कैन हार्म्स योर स्किन आल्सो. For that we use the different instrument now, that by getting this instrument we get the correct idea, correct temperature of that object. So first touch is not reliable. For that we use the temperature, and for that temperature to measure there are different instruments are to be used. In a previous lecture we discussed about the clinical thermometer. Let me show the diagram, the perfect diagram for the clinical thermometer as like this. Once again, okay, this type of a clinical thermometer is there. Okay, this is a called as a glass tube. This is a glass tube. This is a glass tube. This is a glass tube. In a glass tube, from starting here, from starting here, there is some marking. Is the marking also? This marking shows the scale. ये क्या बताती है? Scale है. In between that scale, there is another column. That column is called as the mercury level. Called as the mercury level. And this reading, so the clinical, we discussed about this, the diagram for the clinical thermometer. Clinical thermometer is, and these clinical thermometer are to be measure the temperature in between 35 degrees Celsius up to 42 degrees Celsius. Clinical thermometer are to be measure the temperature from 35 degrees Celsius to 42 degrees Celsius. So what is the Celsius? ये Celsius, ये जो Celsius है, what is the Celsius? Celsius is the SI unit. Celsius is the SI unit. In previous lecture I will discuss that SI units are to be measure of physical quantities. Celsius scale is to be SI unit, is the standard international that measure the physical quantities. Which physical quantities? Called as the temperature. What is the temperature? So the Celsius is the SI unit. SI unit measure the physical quantity. Which physical quantity? Is the temperature. Temperature measure करने के लिए हमारे पास जो SI unit है called as the Celsius, and clinical thermometer. We discuss about the first instrument are to be used. Mention your textbook also, inside the textbook are mentioned. That's called as the clinical thermometer. What is actually design of that clinical thermometer? How it's look like? What are the parts are to be included in the clinical thermometer? For that, I showed some diagram is there. One contains the glass tube, another is the scale. Scale means this is the reading 35 degrees Celsius, 36, 37, and up to the 42 degrees Celsius. This is the degree Celsius. Another is this column is consist of a mercury level. What is the mercury? Here is another is there. Once again, some arrow is there, and that arrow is represent the kink. Is a kink. Another word is kink is there, and this part from this part is called as the mercury bulb. This is the mercury bulb. There are some instrument or some parts are to be mentioned here. One is a glass tube, another is a scale, another is a mercury level, mercury bulb, and this is the kink. I give the correct information about the glass tubes, mercury level, scale, mercury bulb, and kink. What are the functions of these different parts of the clinical thermometer? First is the glass tube. It consists of narrow glass tube or the uniform glass tube. Another one is the scale. Scale is for measuring the temperature. Measure the temperature, how the object is hot or cold, or how many temperature it has. उस ऑब्जेक्ट के पास कितना टेम्परेचर है जबकि वो हम उसे हॉट करे या कोल्ड कर रहे हैं. मेजरिंग द स्केल से हम पता कर सकेंगे कि 35 डिग्री सेल्सियस है, 36 है, 37 है, 38 है, 39 है, 40 है, कितना टेम्परेचर. दिस इज स्केल. अनदर इज द मर्क्यूरी लेवल, and this is last one is called as the mercury bulb. as the narrow parts are shown in this clinical thermometer. This below part is called as the mercury bulb. This mercury bulb is deep in a object or some for example, we get a liquid object, we take a water, and to measure the temperature of that water, after that we dip this clinical thermometer, and these thermometer are to be placed or insert in that water with the help of mercury bulb. मर्क्यूरी बल्ब से ही हमें एनालाइज हो सकता है टेम्परेचर कितना है. सो द हाउ टू मेजर इट बाय डिपिंग द मर्क्यूरी बल्ब. और फॉर एग्जाम्पल वी मेजर द बॉडी टेम्परेचर. अगर हमें बॉडी टेम्परेचर मेजर करना है तो दैट बल्ब शुड बी प्लेस्ड बिलो द टंग. If you analyze now, if you went to the doctor, if you are ill, in that case, we went to the doctor, doctor measured your temperature, if you are getting a fever, after that, that clinical thermometer are to be used and that thermometer are to be placed below the tongue. tongue के नीचे रखा जाता है थोड़ा सा. And this part should be placed. पूरा thermometer place करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Only we can place only the mercury bulb, and that mercury bulb contain the mercury. Mercury is a type of liquid. It's a type of a liquid. And these liquid are present at a 25 degrees Celsius room temperature. 25 degrees Celsius, I already tell you in the previous lecture what is the 25 degrees Celsius temperature. 25 degrees Celsius temperature, it means it present at a room temperature. When the word is there, only get the room temperature, we get only room temperature, then you have to analyze, or definitely to analyze when we word listen or when we word hear about the room temperature, then definitely it has a 25 temperature. अगर ऐसा वर्ड आपको सुनने में आता है कि रूम टेम्परेचर पे कोई सब्सटेंस इसकी स्टेट पे है, सॉलिड स्टेट पे, लिक्विड स्टेट पे या गैस स्टेट पे है, तो इट मींस दैट when we use the word room temperature, it consists of the temperature called as a 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, 25 degrees Celsius at the room temperature. And mercury is a type of a liquid which present in a 25 degrees Celsius. 25 degrees Celsius पे कौन से स्केल पे होता है? At a liquid state, and it has a high density. Density कैसी होती है? High होती है. इसकी density कैसी होती है? थोड़ी सी ज्यादा होती है. After that, touching the object or we measure the body temperature, then mercury gains some heat energy from the body. ये मर्क्यूरी क्या करता है? जैसे ही टच करता है किसी बॉडी के ऊपर, ह्यूमन बॉडी के ऊपर, जैसे ये क्या करता है? हीट इट एब्जॉर्ब. ये मर्क्यूरी क्या करेगा? हीट एब्जॉर्ब कर लेगा. मर्क्यूरी एब्जॉर्ब हीट एनर्जी. कौन सी? हीट एनर्जी एब्जॉर्ब कर लेगा. एंड यू नो दैट व्हेन द ऑब्जेक्ट्स आर एब्जॉर्बिंग सम अमाउंट ऑफ हीट एनर्जी, अगर कोई ऑब्जेक्ट हीट एनर्जी को एब्जॉर्ब कर लेता है तो इट कैन बी एक्सपांड. There are two words is there. The two words are you don't know the meaning for that. One is the expansion. One word is the expansion. Another one is the contraction. These two words are important for analyzing this idea how the mercury work or how the mercuries are placed in a clinical thermometer. What is the actual function of that mercury? So mercury when absorb the heat, it get expand. Expand meaning होता है to increase its volume. Expansion, it's to increase its volume. It's to increase the volume called as the expansion. Volume बढ़ाएगा. It increase the volume. जैसे ही mercury absorbs some amount of heat energy, after that mercury is expand or expansion is there by gaining some amount of heat energy. After that the level of the mercury is increases. Level of mercury is the increases in a clinical thermometer. जैसे ही mercury absorb कर लेगा heat, after that mercury rises its level. Why it rises its level? Because expansion is there. Why is expansion is occur? Due to mercury absorb the heat energy. From where heat energy is absorbed? Heat energy is absorbed from the human body. Human body का हम temperature measure कर रहे हैं ना. After that जैसे ही किसी ह्यूमन बॉडी को हम टच करते हैं, जैसे ही हम बिलो द टंग रखते हैं क्लिनिकल थर्मामीटर को, आफ्टर दैट मर्क्यूरी एब्जॉर्ब सम अमाउंट ऑफ हीट एनर्जी फ्रॉम द माउथ ऑफ दैट ह्यूमन, एंड आफ्टर गेन सम अमाउंट ऑफ हीट एनर्जी दैट मर्क्यूरी एक्सपांड और एक्सपांशन इज देयर, एंड ड्यू टू द एक्सपांशन लेवल ऑफ द मर्क्यूरी इज राइजेस. जैसे ही इंक्रीज हो जाएगी लेवल, वी हैव टू एनालाइज दिस स्केल। हम ये स्केल को क्या करेंगे, एनालाइज कर लेंगे 35 डिग्री से आगे, अब फ्रॉम above the 35 degree Celsius. If that temperature, that mercury levels are here only, यहां तक अगर मर्क्यूरी की लेवल आते हैं तो we can analyze body temperature is 36 degree Celsius. If the mercury level is increases up to the 37 degree Celsius, then we analyze body temperature 37 degree Celsius. After that, increase the level of the mercury up to the 38 degree Celsius, then we analyze the 38 degree Celsius temperature. That clinical thermometer again rises up level up to the 40 degree Celsius, then we analyze the body temperature is the 42 degree Celsius. So this is the correct working of the clinical thermometer. Clinical thermometer ऐसे work करता है. Mercury is very important. Now, ये previous when the thermometers are made, at that time the mercury has to be used. Nowadays that mercury are replaced by alcohol. Mercury as nowadays the clinical thermometer are to be made. At that time they replace the mercury with the alcohol, because the mercury is the, when we break the mercury, there is a harmful to the human body also. इसके वजह से उन्होंने क्या कर दिया, रिप्लेस कर दिया mercury, replaced with the alcohol. Nowadays in advanced technology, nowadays the clinical thermometer are not using the mercury also and alcohol also. They are to be used as a digital thermometer is there. अब हम कोई क्या यूज करते हैं, डिजिटल थर्मामीटर, गेट डायरेक्ट टू द रीडिंग ऑन दैट स्केल, डायरेक्टली रीडिंग आती है कितना टेम्परेचर उस ऑब्जेक्ट का. नाउ यूजिंग द डिजिटल थर्मामीटर, आफ्टर दैट प्रीवियस दैट वी यूज द क्लिनिकल थर्मामीटर, इट कंसिस्ट ऑफ द मर्क्यूरी. नाउडेज आफ्टर दैट mercury replaced by the alcohol, nowadays we use the digital thermometer. But in a previous, how we measure the temperature, for that purpose, for getting the more idea how to measure the temperature from starting, पहले हम कैसे मेजर करते थे. Nowadays we get a digital thermometer, but the previous time we use the clinical. So what is the construction, what is the working of that clinical thermometer is important to understand the student को अंडरस्टैंड करना. इट्स मैंडेटरी कि पहले जो क्लिनिकल थर्मामीटर हमारे यहाँ यूज होता था उसका कंस्ट्रक्शन कैसा है, वर्किंग कैसा है, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट पार्ट्स आर टू बी यूज्ड in a clinical thermometer. Let I revise all the parts. One is the glass tube, another one is the scale, mercury level is there, and last one is the mercury bulb is very important, because mercury bulb are to be important. This place to the human body में place किया जाता है, below the tongue place किया जाता है. पूरा थर्मामीटर प्लेस करने की जरूरत नहीं होती, ओनली मर्क्यूरी बल्ब प्लेस करने के बाद ही रीडिंग इसमें स्टार्ट हो जाते हैं. अनदर वन इज द किंक इज देयर, किंक आर टू बी प्रेजेंट हियर ओनली. यहाँ पे क्या होगा, एक किंक होगी, यहाँ पे क्या होगा, किंक. ये क्या कर रही है, व्हाट इज द फंक्शन ऑफ दैट किंक, व्हेन द मर्क्यूरी लेवल इज अप एंड वी remove that clinical thermometer from the mouth. After that reading not be not previous means, यहां से अगर रीडिंग बढ़ रही है, अगर जैसे हम रिमूव करते हैं वो जो लाइन है, वो जो एक्सपांशन वो रिड्यूस ना हो सके, इट एट दैट टाइम इट स्टॉप दैट द लेवल को क्या करता है, स्टॉप करता है एट टू टेक द रीडिंग हम जैसे ही ले लेते हैं, एट दैट टाइम ही स्टॉप द राइज और द लूज ऑफ द मर्क्यूरी की लेवल कम ना हो सके. इसकी वजह से यहाँ पे क्या होता है, किंक होता है कि मर्क्यूरी की जो लेवल है वो डायरेक्टली सडनली फॉल ना हो सके, यहां से रोक लेगा. यहाँ इट कैन बी स्टॉप बाय द किंक ओनली. तो किंक का फंक्शन, मर्क्यूरी बल्ब, स्केल टू बी मेजर द टेम्परेचर, ग्लास ट्यूब एंड मर्क्यूरी लेवल, इट्स अ राइज बाय इन द टेम्परेचर. ओके, नेक्स्ट वन इज दैट हाउ वी know about that. The 35 degree Celsius temperature is there, 36 scale temperature is there, 37 Celsius temperature is there. But when the temperature or the rise of the mercury are in between 36 and 35, then we what do, how to measure it. इसको measure कैसे करेंगे, ये तो आपने डायरेक्टली बताया 35, 36, 37, 38, 40 and after the 42 degree Celsius. But the readings are to be come from the middle to 36 और 37 के बीच में भी रीडिंग आ सकती है. It can be possible also. Yes, because the objects are to be different now. They have a different amount of heat energy. They have a different amount of temperature is there. For that, in a one reading, 1 degree Celsius is consists of 10 small 10 small divisions. In 1 degree Celsius, they get a small 10 divisions. It means that from 35 to 36, there are small 10 divisions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are small 10 divisions are placed in between these two. अगर इसके बीच में अगर टेम्परेचर आता है, समझो यहाँ पे कहा यहाँ पे अगर आती है, तो यू हैव टू मेजर फ्रॉम 35, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the temperature is at 30.5 degree Celsius. Not a big deal for that. अगर इन दोनों के बीच में आता है तो you have to understand or you have to memorize that 1 degree Celsius are consist of 10 small divisions. 1 डिग्री अगर टेम्परेचर है क्लिनिकल थर्मामीटर में, अगर 1 डिग्री टेम्परेचर है, इट कंसिस्ट ऑफ 10 स्मॉल डिविजन. कितने डिविजन होते हैं? 10 स्मॉल डिविजन होते हैं. फ्रॉम दैट वी गेट द रीडिंग्स इन बिटवीन द 2 डिग्री सेल्सियस. 2 डिग्री के बीच में अगर रीडिंग्स आती है तो हमें ऐसे एनालाइज करना पड़ता है, उसमें कितने होते हैं? 10 स्मॉल डिविजन्स. Okay, this is the whole about the clinical thermometer, and the clinical thermometer are to be used only to measure the body temperature. Body temperature measure करने के लिए होता है, and our reading start from 35 degree Celsius to 42 degree Celsius. 35 से कहां तक? 42 डिग्री सेल्सियस तक ही हमें क्या कर सकते हैं? मेजर कर सकते हैं. So there are some limitations about the clinical thermometer. Clinical thermometer के क्या है? कुछ limitations है. Limitations यानी कि ये कहां से कहां तक मेजर कर सकता है? It can be measured from 35 to only 42 degrees Celsius and are to be used only for the body temperature. And we know that the normal body temperature of the human beings are varies, or its average it's a 37 degrees Celsius. कितना होता है? It's actually 37 degrees Celsius. इतना ही body temperature होता है human. And according to this 35 to 40 degrees Celsius, you have to measure this by using a clinical thermometer. Okay. I hope you understand all the concepts are related with the clinical thermometer. What are the different parts are to be mentioned in a clinical thermometer, how they work, what are the functions of the different parts of the clinical thermometer. I hope you understand all each and every concepts are present in a clinical thermometer. Hope you understand, and if you have any doubts you have to ask in a comment section also. Okay.